Welcome in to episode 23 of the Barnes on Bama podcast. I'm your host, Owen Barnes, and we've got some things to discuss. First off, a quick housekeeping. I want to thank everyone who's subscribed to the channel, for everyone who's been liking and watching the content. I really appreciate it. If you do ever have any comments, questions, concerns, throw them down in the comments. I do read all of them. I know I get asked a lot about the signage behind me. That's by Hexhead Art online. The actual LED kit comes with you can buy it as a part of the kit as well. And it's really, really cool. I really appreciate it. It's one of my favorite things in my office. So if you do appreciate the content, like I said, I really would appreciate you subscribing, sharing it with your friends. But like I said, just wanted to answer the question that I get most often. But like I said, if there are any other questions, comments, concerns, throw them down in the comments. I do read them all, and I'm happy to discuss. So I want to quickly kick off this episode by first talking about basketball. So we did have some news announced earlier today. I'm recording this on Monday, August the 19th. And the news that was announced earlier today was that Alabama was going to be playing Memphis in a charity exhibition on October the 28th in Huntsville. That charity exhibition is going to be benefiting the Huntsville Hospital Foundation. Obviously, with this, that means that Alabama will now be playing in Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, Auburn, and Birmingham this upcoming season. So they're going to be playing kind of all over the state. But additionally, what this is obviously a charity exhibition. The big thing is it also happens on the off week for Alabama football. That's the off week leading into the LSU game. It's also fall break for the college kids. So it's, just a really good time, a time that there's going to be some people obviously looking for something to do, looking for something to watch, and it's something that's big that obviously Alabama sports fans can kind of get a first peek at the basketball team. One thing that also came out right after this was announced was Adam Bowman, director of scouting and recruiting for the basketball team, actually quote tweeted it and said, "Not done yet." So it does sound like they potentially have another exhibition coming up that may be happening just before or just after this. So just be on the lookout for that. My gut says that's going to be coming out very shortly since he teased that already. The other basketball news that I want to discuss, we talked a little bit about last week, but there has been some additional news that came out on the recruiting front. So the two big recruits that we've talked the most about here recently have been A.J. Dybantsa and Jasper Johnson. A.J. Dybantsa being the number one overall recruit for next season, and Jasper Johnson currently being, I believe, 11th per On3. With A.J. Dybantsa, basically what happened is Jamie Shaw, one of the head basketball recruiting guys over at On3, put out an article earlier today basically giving his prediction for the top 15 guys per On3 as well as where his confidence level and who their biggest competitor is currently compared to the leader. And the two guys that Alabama is currently leading for are the two guys we just mentioned, A.J. Dybantsa and Jasper Johnson. A.J. Dybantsa is set to visit Alabama on September the 28th. That's the week of the Alabama-Georgia football game. I'm sure that's going to be a huge recruiting weekend for football and basketball. It sounds like Dybantsa is coming in that weekend. Jamie Shaw predicted him to Alabama with a 30% confidence and said that our biggest competitor is currently BYU. Based on what I saw, BYU is going to be one of the last visits in his recruiting ranking. So obviously, or in his recruiting battle. So we will hear some things coming out of that official visit. I'm very curious to kind of see how this shapes up. But that's one that you definitely are going to want to watch closely, especially as we get closer to that official visit time frame. The other recruit that we wanted to talk about was Jasper Johnson. Jasper Johnson, Shaw had Alabama leading at as well with about 40% confidence, with the biggest competitor being Kentucky. Alabama, Kentucky, and North Carolina have been the leaders for him kind of this whole time. It sounds like Carolina has fallen off pretty far, so it sounds like this is an Alabama-Kentucky kind of race to the finish to see who gets Jasper Johnson's services. It does sound like Kentucky is trying to put their best foot forward. He's originally from Lexington. His dad was an alumni at Kentucky, so Kentucky definitely has, some leg going into this, but it sounds like Alabama and Preston Murphy have done a really, really good job, and that Alabama is in a very good position to land Jasper. Based on what we've heard coming out earlier today, it sounds like his decision is going to be made and coming out next week. So I will be discussing that right after it comes out. If it comes out in time for the preview episode before the football game, I'll put it out in that episode. If not, I'll talk about it in the post-cap after the football game. So that's really all we had to discuss with the basketball team. Just wanted to kind of give a recap. I know we've discussed some of those things prior. And then obviously the schedule piece with the charity exhibition just got announced today. Now we're going to shift over to football, and I want to quickly give a little bit of housekeeping as it pertains to football. And I just mentioned the plan for football is what we're going to do is on Wednesdays, there's going to be an episode coming out breaking down the game that's happening that week, right? So next Wednesday, the game will be breaking down that Western Kentucky game. Then the day after the football game on Sunday is the plan for when the post-cap will come out. It will either come out that Sunday or first thing on Monday morning. The plan is to have them come out most Sunday afternoons. I'm sure there might be a couple of times that I have to come out on Monday morning. Like I do know that I'm going to be traveling one of the weekends, so I may not have time to record prior to Monday morning. But the plan is either Sunday night or Monday morning. The recap of the week prior is going to come out. So like I said, previews on Wednesdays, recaps on either Sunday afternoon or Monday morning. So as it pertains to basketball, there have been a few things that have been going on. I want to start with kind of what happened first. So J.J. Watt came and spoke to the team on Wednesday. And, this is not super uncommon that you have, people that have been successful in the NFL or successful in their careers come to speak to the football team. But what was unique about this, and the reason I bring this up is the photos that were posted when J.J. Watt came, that were posted to Twitter, gave us a little bit of an extra sneak preview into what DeBoer's office looks like. And I want to, give a shout out to Blake Byler. If you've heard, listened to the podcast much, you know that I do shout him out quite often. I think he does great work. He actually just joined On 3. But he did a perfect side-by-side, and I'll show it here, that kind of shows Saban's office versus DeBoer's office. And the big thing that you'll notice with the two offices is Saban's office feels much more of kind of a, wood grain, gentleman vibe where it's kind of feels almost like a cigar lounge. Versus DeBoer's office is much more new age, much more modern, minimalist. Obviously, two very different styles of offices. Not to say one is better than the other, but definitely just two different people, two different offices. And the big kind of visual representation of this is that DeBoer is not trying to be Coach Saban. He's not trying to copy Coach Saban. And that's great, right? We've talked about that at length. There's an episode that I did all about this, that DeBoer and Saban are not the same person. They're doing practices different, with Saban having afternoon practices and DeBoer going to morning practices. Their temperaments are different, with Saban being a little bit more, in your face and aggressive versus DeBoer's a little bit more laid back, right? There's very much differences in these two coaches. And I think that that's a good thing, right? What you don't want when you hire a coach to follow a legend is you don't want them to think that they have to be the same person as that legendary coach. Because when they fall in that rut, then that causes, them to potentially, fall into pitfalls, especially if that isn't who they are as a coach, right? And at the end of the day, Saban is not who DeBoer is as a coach, and that's okay, right? They can both be successful in their own right. So I thought that this was a really big thing. Like I said, it kind of gave us a little bit of additional sneak preview into his office, and I thought that it was really cool. The other thing that we want to talk about is the scrimmage. The scrimmage happened on Saturday. DeBoer spoke after the scrimmage, and there was a few, kind of things that we've heard discussed by people that were there. DeBoer mentioned that there were a few takeaways, and that the defensive backs were doing a really good job kind of up on the wide receivers, and also that the wide receivers, that the return guys, He really liked how Jeremy Bernard is doing, but thought that there were some additional guys, be it Ryan Williams, Jalen Mbakwe, even Kendrick Law, that potentially are going to have a chance back there returning kicks, whether it be punts or kick return. And but really liked how Jeremy Bernard is doing so far. Some other things that were discussed that I've seen kind of put out there is not just where the corners and defensive backs kind of doing a good job up on the receivers, but it sounded like, if the receivers were coming across the middle or, were in traffic, that the corners and defensive backs were really, laying the wood to them, hitting them as hard as they could to try to, break up passes and such. And it really sounds like that was something that was discussed, that, there were some definitely hard-hitting guys out there. I know Malachi was mentioned with this, but there were some big hits that were delivered by the defensive backs in trying to break up passes and stuff. So it does sound like, obviously there were some, good things that happened in this. The other two things I want to discuss as it pertains to the offensive line is Jaden Roberts did have a slight injury, left the scrimmage, and there was a post by his mother actually on Twitter saying that he had a slight procedure. DeBoer and his mother both seem to think he's going to be completely fine, and that he's going to be good for game one. So that's awesome news to hear. And then DeBoer did mention that the right tackle battle is probably not going to be able to be fully decided until after the first game, right? Or at least, when we get into game time, because he thinks that there's going to need some live reps before we fully decide who wins that battle. But it sounds like, both of them are pushing each other, which is awesome. But that right tackle battle will not be fully decided before the first game, and that's obviously okay. That's not super uncommon for a position battle to kind of leak into the first couple of weeks of game time. So just want to discuss those. And then now we're going to move into a topic that came up on Sunday, which I thought was really important and one to discuss because A, I experienced it firsthand, and B, I thought it was just really, really cool to kind of see a different side of the team. So on Sunday, what I'm referring to is, for those of you that are not aware of kind of the layout of Tuscaloosa, right next to the football stadium, there's a church named Calvary Baptist Church that is attended obviously by Tuscaloosa residents such as myself. There's a fairly robust college ministry, as well as overall just people in the community. And something that apparently, and I've not been aware of this, me and my girlfriend have been attending since I've been here, and she was attending prior to that. But something that apparently that they do every year, which I was unaware of, is something they call Squad Sunday. And it's one Sunday a year, the football team comes with all their coaches and players, and they attend service with everyone else, right? They attend service. And a part of the reason why they attend Squad Sunday is that Calvary Baptist Church has the honor of presenting the Charlie Compton Award for Outstanding Christian Leadership. And the Charlie Compton Award for Outstanding Christian Leadership is awarded to the player or players that, obviously are leading not just on the football field, but leading their fellow teammates to Christ. And it's named after former Alabama football player and World War II veteran Charlie Compton. He passed away after 22 years as a missionary in Brazil. And it was, there was a video that played just before they announced the winners for this season. And it was, Barrett Jones and quite a few other guys that had won the award in the past, kind of talking about what the award meant to them. And obviously the big thing is that at the end of the day, football is not who they are. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but it's just what they do, right? That there are some more important things in life than just playing football or just having a career. And, leading their teammates to Christ was something they really, felt deeply in. And so that video played, and then it was announced that the winner for this season, or actually winners for this season, were Ty Simpson, Justice Haynes, and Graham Roten. Also there was Tim Keenan, who won the award last season, and he gave he kind of read it from passage from Scripture, which was really cool, kind of leading into Will, the pastor there, that kind of gave his sermon. And I thought that Will did a really, really good job. And it's, I'm very biased because I do go to church there. But that I think that Will does an awesome job kind of giving his message, not just to the Christian that goes every Sunday, but to people that maybe have never been to church, or people that are just coming for the first time, or whoever it is. I think that Will does a really, really good job of kind of connecting to everyone. And I wanted to kind of quickly go through his outline of what he talked about, and how it pertained to obviously the football players, but just to life, because I thought that it was a really, really good message, and it was something that was really cool to see. And then there was one last thing that I want to talk about that I noticed during service that I thought was really cool. So his basic message was that the Apostle John, when he would refer to himself in the Bible, he would only refer to himself as the apostle who Jesus loved, or the follower who Jesus loved. And he basically, his whole point of the sermon was that no matter what you define yourself as, the truest thing you can define yourself as that you're a child of God that Jesus loves, right? That's, at the end of the day, no matter what else you do, no matter what else you have, no matter what else you are, that's one thing you can absolutely define yourself as. And I thought that it was really, really cool because it obviously pertained to the football players, and I think it really connected with them. You could kind of see head shaking and just guys understanding what was being said and what was going on, because the whole point of the message being that the three identities that are kind of false identities that you hear in the world are: you are what you do, you are what you have, and you are what others think of you, right? And so when he pertains it to the football players, obviously you are what you do. You're not just an athlete, right? You're not just an investment banker. You're not just a college dropout. You're not just whatever, an alcoholic. You're not just this thing, right? Good, bad, or otherwise, you're not just that, right? You are what you have, right? You have a lot of money. You have a lot of followers. You have nothing, right? Doesn't matter, right? That doesn't define you. And then finally, you are what others think of you, whether others think of you awesomely or others think of you very poorly. That, again, that kind of doesn't matter, right? So I thought that the message was really, really good. I thought that it pertained to athletics as well as to life. And so I thought that the football players, it was a really cool message, whether you were one of the players or or an outside person like me and my girlfriend that were there, kind of just experiencing the message. So I thought that it was really, really cool. I thought that it was a cool experience. Jeff Allen, the head athletic trainer, is there. He's a normal attendee. We see him every week with Stuart Bell. So it was just kind of cool seeing the team there. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention that I saw there that I thought was just really cool, and it wasn't something that was mentioned, or probably not something you're going to see on social media, I just thought it was really cool, was so the team was sitting in the center aisle. And because the church is set up where there's kind of three sections. There's the left side, center, and the right side in the center of the church. And the football team was sitting in the center, and Milrow and some of the receivers were kind of sitting up front. And then I saw coach, our wide receivers coach, walk in, and he sits over to the left-hand side behind the deaf ministry. And, I noticed him walk in with his family, his wife and his daughters. And all of a sudden, I saw one of the guys that was sitting next to Milrow kind of get out of the row and go sit next to the coach. And I was like, that's kind of odd. And then for the whole time during worship, and, he did it during worship, and then he gave her back to her mom during the sermon. And then when they did the second half of worship, he was holding her again. And I believe it was Jeremy Bernard, based on what I could tell. But he was just holding Coach's daughter and was kind of singing along and holding her. And it was just a side of a football player that you don't always see. I thought that it was really, really cool, kind of the personal aspect of a game. Because at the end of the day, whether you look at it from a Christian perspective or not, at the end of the day, these are not just football players. They are people, right? And so, what they're going to do on Saturdays, what they're going to do on Sundays is great, but, who they are is much more than that. So I thought that it was really cool to see that side of the players. Following that, you saw all of the posts on Twitter where it looks like a lot of the position coaches hosted their players at their houses, and there was the specialists, the linebackers, the defensive backs. All the guys were hosted at each other's houses. I thought that it was really cool to see. So it really was a time of fellowship, a time of hanging out with friends, and I thought that it was just a really cool Sunday kind of experience for the players, and it was really cool for me to be able to experience it firsthand. So that's what I want to discuss today. Like I said, a little bit different episode, bringing in the Christian element because that's what happened on Sunday. But I really thought that it was cool to see, and I wanted to share my experience with it. So if you did appreciate the episode or are interested, like I said, if you have any questions, comments, or anything at all, please throw them down in the bottom. I do read them all. But thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.